Hare Kṛṣṇa. This morning, we'll start with the translation to the Śrī Jagannath Ashtakam. And then there are two verses that are very important in relationship to Rath Yatra. One of them is a verse that Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu spontaneously sang at the Rath Yatra, which was from the secular part of the world. There were many people who heard him and couldn't understand why he was singing it, but Swarup Damodar could understand. It was about a love affair and how the lover was pining for a time when she had just fallen in love with her lover and they were in a certain setting, moonlit night. And when Rupa Goswami heard the verse, he translated it into a verse that was parallel, but expressed the true meaning of the verse Caitanya Mahaprabhu was singing. That's why we say Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. In the context of the Antya Lila, chapter 1, the devotees are amazed when they hear how Rupa Goswami has composed a verse, but to speak of other verses expressing the innermost desire of the Lord in his pastimes. And the devotees present, when Caitanya Mahaprabhu was amazed at the verse, remarked that you've empowered him to do this. So we're Rupanugas. The verse we sing second is the translated verse. It's in Sanskrit, but we'll read the translation. So then we can recite those verses together and remember the context of Jagannath Rath Yatra, which is in chapter 82 of the Śrīmad Bhagavatam, the meeting of the residents of Vrindavan with Kṛṣṇa at Kurukshetra. We need a little background. So what order are we doing? Okay. Sometimes in great happiness, Lord Jagannath makes a loud concert with his flute in the groves on the banks of the Jamuna. He is like a bumblebee tasting the lotus-like faces of the cowherd damsels of Vraja. And great personalities such as Lakshmi, Shiva, Brahma, Indra and Ganesh worship his lotus feet. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. In his left hand, Lord Jagannath holds a flute. On his head, he wears peacock feathers, and on his hips, he wears fine bellows silken cloth. In the corners of his eyes, he bestows sidelong glances upon his loving devotees, and he always reveals himself through his pastimes in his divine abode of Vrindavan. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. On the shore of the great ocean, within a large palace atop the brilliant golden Nilachala hill, Lord Jagannath resides with his powerful brother, Balabhadra, and his sister Subhadra, who sits between them. May that Jagannath Swami, who bestows the opportunity for devotional service upon all godly souls, be the object of my vision. Lord Jagannath is an ocean of mercy, and as beautiful as a row of blackish rain clouds. He is a storehouse of bliss for Lakshmi and Saraswati, and his face resembles a spotless, full-blown lotus. The best of demigods and sages worship him, and the Upanishads sing his glories. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. When Lord Jagannath moves on the road on his Rath Yatra car, at every step large assemblies of brahmanas loudly chant prayers and songs for his pleasure. Hearing their hymns, Lord Jagannath becomes very favorably disposed toward them. He is the ocean of mercy and the true friend of all the worlds. May that Jagannath Swami, along with his consort Lakshmi, who was born from the ocean of nectar, be the object of my vision. Lord Jagannath, whose eyes resemble full-blown lotus petals, is the ornament on Lord Brahma's head. He resides on Nilachala hill, with his lotus feet placed on the heads of Anantadev. Overwhelmed by the mellows of love, he joyfully embraces Srimati Radharani's body, which is like a cool pond. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. I do not pray for a kingdom, nor for gold, rubies, or wealth. I do not ask for a beautiful wife as desired by all men. I simply pray that Jagannath Swami, whose glorious Lord Shiva always sings, may be the constant object of my vision. O Lord of the demigods, please quickly remove this useless material existence I am undergoing. O Lord of the Yadus, please destroy this vast, shoreless ocean of sins. Alas, it is certain. Lord Jagannath bestows his lotus feet upon those who feel themselves fallen and have no shelter in this world but him. May that Jagannath Swami be the object of my vision. My dear friend, now I have met my very old and dear friend Kṛṣṇa. This field of Kurukshetra. I'm the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. It is very pleasant, but still I would like to go to the bank of the Jamuna, beneath the trees of the forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of the sweet flute playing the fifth note. Just as a moment of context, that this is again the meeting of Kṛṣṇa with many of his devotees from all over the world. It was an excuse to go to Kurukshetra, this place where Parashurama had gone and established a holy place, and Kurus had gone there thousands of times to perform sacrifices, known as the chief place to perform yajna. And during the eclipse of the sun, which was most predictable at that time due to the advanced understanding of the heavens by great sages, induced all of the devotees to go and meet Kṛṣṇa, who had announced that I'm going to Kurukshetra to observe a ceremony, purification, during the eclipse of the sun. Subsequently, there were bards who went out to many parts of the world to announce the festival, including to Vrindavan. And when the residents heard about it, they decided that it was the best opportunity to see Kṛṣṇa, which had been over 100 years since he left Vrindavan with Akura and saying, I'll be back in a few days. And they had waited 3 days from a few days and 3 days more from a few days. And in that way, they had passed 100 years in abject separation from the Lord. Kṛṣṇa came with millions of soldiers, decorated with golden filigree elephants as big as clouds, armies marching, and great sages came from other planetary systems just to see Kṛṣṇa there at Kurukshetra. And all of them gathered there at that holy place. And when the residents of Vrindavan arrived and Kṛṣṇa found out they were there, he excused himself from his meetings with others. Balaram realized that after meeting Nanda Yashoda, and they had taken Kṛṣṇa and Balaram by the hands and kept them on their laps. Devaki was there, Rohini was there. They tried to talk to Yashoda, but she was in some other world. And they said, it's not possible to speak to her now. They went out, met with the queens of Dwarka. It was a great gathering and meeting at that time. And then Kṛṣṇa came to meet with his most beloved gopis who had been pining for him. Balaram found an excuse to go elsewhere. And Kṛṣṇa had then direct contact with the gopis. And at that time, just as when he had sent a letter with Uddhava to Vrindavan to console the gopis, in the letter he had sent, he had recommended that they practice Dhyan Yoga or Gyan Yoga. And they thought that was a complete joke. And now again Kṛṣṇa began to speak similar words to the gopis. He said, oh, it's the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that we've been separated. And they retorted, but you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Kṛṣṇa said, well, anyway, Mai bhaktiri bhutanam amritatvaya kalpate jishtayat asimat sneho bhavatinam marapanaha. He said, you have attained such a level of devotional service that you've achieved the perfection of life. And it's in that tension between the gopis' intense love we have from the Śrīmad Bhagavatam, the Parayeham, when Kṛṣṇa admits, I cannot reciprocate the pure love that you've expressed for me. And our acharyas point out that there at Kurukshetra, that sense of separation reaches its zenith. Because although they're there in front of Kṛṣṇa, and they see the same Kṛṣṇa they've seen before in Vrindavan, still they want him to come back. And if Kṛṣṇa says, just come with me to Dwarka, they'll say, no, we don't want to be with you in Dwarka. We want to see you with the Jamuna and Govardhan Hill and a peacock feather in your hair. That's where we can love you with abandon. And none of these ceremonious surroundings with all your soldiers and other people. We want to be in Vrindavan. And this is the pastime of Rath Yatra, is commemorated in the pulling of the carts that the gopis that are pulling Kṛṣṇa back to Vrindavan. And Caitanya Mahaprabhu's dancing at Rath Yatra is an exhibition of Srimati Radharani meeting Kṛṣṇa at Kurukshetra, pulling him back to Vrindavan. And the exchange that goes on between the two of them in his dancing, sometimes in front of the carts and sometimes behind, and sometimes Jagannath not seeing Srimati Radharani in the form of Caitanya Mahaprabhu stops moving the cart, and no one, even in the elephants, can pull it until Caitanya Mahaprabhu comes behind and pushes with his head, showing the strength of Srimati Radharani, who by the pull of her love is pulling Kṛṣṇa back to Vrindavan. The G-force of that pull, as we know from probably watching some stupid movie, you see a jet pilot going at 7 G-force, 8, 9 G-force, as much as a human being could actually tolerate. If you see their face, it becomes distorted. There's some conflict between the speed and the gravitational pull, and therefore the face becomes distorted. Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj recounts the Odyssey scriptures describing how the Jagannath Swami's features are the features of Kṛṣṇa when he's in ecstasy. You see the arms within his body, the eyes. One may look and say, that's the face of God. But the insiders who know this pastime understand that that's the face of God when he's being pulled back to Vrindavan by the force of the gopis' love, who have tied him up and they're pulling him back. And still, we know he's held by the devotees in Dwarka in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. We hear about how they're all noticing that Kṛṣṇa, even as he's in Dwarka, in his dreams, he's calling out. They comment amongst themselves. Sometimes he says in the names of cows. He said, no, he's calling out his girlfriends. Even as he's there with the 16,108 wives. But to speak of even in his daydreams, he's thinking about Vrindavan. So Rath Yatra is described in these verses and epitomized by these prayers. The one we just sang is Srimati Radharani at Kurukshetra in front of Kṛṣṇa, him indicating, how about we go to Dwarka? And she's saying, no, I want to see you back in Vrindavan. And the next verse is the one that Caitanya Mahaprabhu spontaneously sang from it was a popular song of the time. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlit nights of the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of malati flowers is there, and the same sweet breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover, yet still my mind is not happy here. That place, the bank of the Reva, under the Batasi tree, that is my desire. And now we can sing the verses. Jachitka Lingita Sabhina Sangita Toravo Mudadirinari Vajana Kamala Svadamadhupa Rama Shambhu Brahmama Pati Ganeshartika Ado Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patakami Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patakami Abatume Jese Yedinu Shirati Shikiti Shankati Tate Kulam Netrante Sarakatataksham Nidhate Sada Sriman Vrindavana Vasati Lila Parishayo Prasadanta Sahajabala Padrena Balina Subhadra Madhyasta Sakala Sura Seva Vasarado Jagannatha Swami Nayana Pattagami Jagannatha Swami Nayana Pattagami Abhatume Kripa Paravara Jala Jala Dashri Niruchiro Rama Vani Rama Suradamala Pante Ruparuka Surendra Raja Sutigana Shikta Gita Sharita Jagannatha Swami Nayana Pattagami Jagannatha Swami Nayana Pattagami Abhatume Vakarudo Gacchapa Milita Budeva Patalai Sudi Pradurvavam Vipanabukhaya Sadaya Jaya Sindur Bandhu Sakala Jagat Samsindhu Tusaya Jagannatha Swami Nayana Pattagami Laya Dalot Kulanayano Nivasini Ladroni Dacharano Nantatirasi Rasanando Radha Sarasa Vapura Lingana Sukho Jagannatha Swami Narayana Patadami Mahāprabhu Jagannatha Swami Narayana Patadami Mahāprabhu Navayache Rajam Nachakannatamani Vibhavam Yaksheham Ramyam Sakala Janakamyam Vadavadu Sadakale Kale Ramakapatina Vidasarito Jagannatha Swami Narayana Patadami Jagannatha Swami Narayana Patadami Bhavatum Samsaram Drutaka Namaskaram Surapate Bhavatam Papana Vitati Aparam Yarabhapate Ahodhinenate Dacharana Nishitamida Jagannatha Swami Narayana Patadami Bhavatum Jagannatha Swami Narayana Patadami Bhavatum. This is sung in the same tune. It's a note, the second to last word in the first verse, Kshetra. You have to hold the E a little longer. It's held double anyway, but hold it longer than usual. In Vipinaya, second to last word in the last verse, to hold the Naya longer. Priyasoyam Kṛṣṇa Sahachari Kuru Kshetra Milita Aham Saradha Tadidam Ubhayo Sangama Sukha Tatyanta Kelan Madhura Murali Panchamaduje Mano Nekalindi Pulina Vipinaya Ayati Mano Nekalindi Pulina Vipinaya Marahara eva hibara sa eva chaitra shapa eko nilita malati surabaya jaka jamba nila sachaiva smita tapita krasurasa One more time. And the last verse in the Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu gives a benediction. Jagannathashtakam punyam yapatit prayata shuchi sarvapapa vishuddhatma vishnu lokam. Chant this verse, go straight back to Godhead. So we'll sing the last part. Jagannathashtakam punyam yapatit prayata shuchi sarvapapa vishuddhatma vishnu lokam sagasati, which goes with Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And now we'll have a reading of the Śrī Caitanya Charitamrita, chapter 14. And to begin, we'll do a short Mangalacharana, the first two verses of the Caitanya Charitamrita. Vande Guru Nisha Bhakta Ishani Shavatarakam Tat Prakasham Statat Shakti Krishna Caitanya Samjakam Vande Shri Krishna Caitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaudodai Pushpavanto Chitra Shando Tamonuda. So this chapter of 14 describes Lord Caitanya's Vrindavan pastimes, and we find in our disciplic succession coming down from Madhavendra Puri, who introduced the feelings of separation, or he showed the symptoms of separation from the Lord even as he was leaving the world. He was... Okay, thank you. And Caitanya Mahāprabhu, of course, had come and showed the full meaning of those feelings that Madhavendra Puri had first shown to the world as he was leaving the world. He had called out, "Oh my Lord, I wasn't able to attain you." Great lamentation. It's described as the pinnacle, that is the separation from Kṛṣṇa. Caitanya Mahāprabhu emphasized. And Jagannath Puri is known as Vipralamba Kshetra. Vipralamba meaning separation. Caitanya Mahāprabhu, after taking sannyas at 24 years old, had gone to Jagannath Puri. It was an arrangement with his dear mother. He had met at Vaisesika house. After he took sannyas, he wandered as a madman might wander without any direction. He was falsely directed to Vaisesika's house by Nityananda Prabhu, who had told coward boys nearby, if he asked which direction in Vrindavan, tell him that way. And Mahaprabhu had arrived there, and he had then thought that the Ganga there was the Jamuna, so he dove in, and then he subsequently saw Advaitacharya arriving on a boat. And he said, "What are you doing here in Vrindavan?" And Advaitacharya said, "Wherever you are, Lord, is Vrindavan." And Caitanya Mahāprabhu then became aware that, as he had said, he had been cheated. Nityananda cheated me, you've all cheated me. There at Advaitacharya's house, however, there was a great meeting and a decision by Caitanya Mahāprabhu at the request of his mother that he stay in Jagannath Puri as his base. Because everyone reasoned that Puri and Navadvip were two rooms in the same house. People were always coming and going between them. And of course we know when Caitanya Mahāprabhu stayed there for 24 years in Puri, every year the devotees would come from Navadvip to meet him there, and they'd stay for several months just having festivals. That sound like a good idea? Then the devotees come here from many places on buses and airplanes. You can stay for 3 months also and just have a festival. Haribol. Caitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to South India several times, traveled, he went to Vrindavan. He received a note from Advaita Acharya, and the note said that there's enough rice in the marketplace, it's saturated. Everyone's achieved your purpose of attaining love of God. He said, Caitanya Mahaprabhu had heard the note, and he remarked, he said, he calls the deity to come and then he asks them to leave. And everyone wondered what that meant. Swarup Damodar knew what it meant, but he pretended that he didn't, and he asked, what does it mean? And Swarup Damodar became a little morose, and others were bewildered. What did it mean? But immediately afterwards, Caitanya Mahaprabhu's demeanor and his mood changed completely. He, as Kaviraj Goswami said, then engaged in practically mad performances every day in the company of Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. There in the Gambhira. Gambhira means deep. Although it's a tiny little room, there's a way in which he had gone into the deepest levels of separation from Krishna, which is his very purpose in coming. We know that Caitanya Mahaprabhu had come as Yuga Avatar. Yuga Avatar comes anyway. Oftentimes it's an empowered jiva who comes to spread the Yuga Dharma, because the Yuga Dharma is presented by the mercy of the Lord in every age. But this time, Mahaprabhu had his own purposes, or the Lord had his own purposes. Anarpita charyam chirat karuna yavatirna kala samarpayi tumana tojvara rasam subhakti shriyam hari purata sundara duti katam vasandipta sadahradaya kandare spuratu vasachinandana. As Rupa Goswami describes how the Lord, who's a person, and felt that the world needs to know my personality beyond just an understanding of the Supreme Spirit or the all-pervading Brahman, or even the majestic Lord in Vaikuntha. He should know my real life. And he wanted to distribute that to the world, the spontaneous love of the residents of Vrindavan. He also had his own internal purposes. Śrī Radhaya pranaya mahima kidrisho vanayayava swadyo yena bhuta madhurima kidrisho vahamadyaha saukyam chasya mad anubhavata kidrisham beti loba tadbhavadya samajani sachigarba sindo harindu. He wanted to understand what he couldn't. How can God not understand something? What is it that he couldn't understand? Atheists say, can he make a rock that he can't lift? Is there a situation he can't understand? And there is a way in which Krishna admits, na parayeham, there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that there is something I can't understand, nor can I reciprocate. As Krishna declared boldly and loudly in the Bhagavad Gita, ye yata mam prapadyante tamstatayava bhajamyaham mama vartmano attante manusha partha sarvashva. I'm equal to everyone and I reward everyone according to their desires. But then there comes a time in the pastimes of Krishna with his most dear devotees in Vrindavan that he says, you'll have to be satisfied with your own love because I can't comprehend it. Therefore, he says, I'll come myself and try to taste it. And that's how he comes as Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu on that mission. The Yuga Dharma, that's just incidental. And teaching Raga Anuga Bhakti, the spontaneous love of the devotees have for him in Vrindavan, and how to ascend to that position through the process of devotional service, sadhana bhakti, to bhava bhakti, to prema bhakti in this lifetime. This became also one of the topics, but his innermost desire was to taste that love. And now we get a glimpse into that in his pastimes in Jagannath Puri, where he's experiencing the love of the gopis in Vrindavan in the company of Subdamodar Ramananda Roy, and of course there in Puri he goes to Tota Gopinath. He's meeting Gadadhar Pandit there regularly, every day, to read Srimad Bhagavatam, and he's digging in the sand there. Is there enough oxygen? You have enough? Okay. Digging in the sand, he discovers the deity. He has asked Gadadhar Pandit to worship the Lord there. Daily he would come and hear Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj, again and again, hundreds of times. He had Gadadhar Pandit read to him. Mahaprabhu had a difficult time reading because his eyes were so filled with tears. In fact, it described how he had destroyed several shastras and copies of Bhagavatam with his tears. He also became frustrated trying to do puja because his emotions would come up so much and his tears were so profuse that it was hard for him to perform any of those types of activities. He would sit and listen to Gadadhar Pandit singing the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we go to the performance of the Vrindavan pastimes. It's all taking place within Puri. And I'll read a few verses. Dressing himself as a Vaishnav, Maharaj Prataparudra entered the garden of Balagandi alone and began reciting verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. He then took the opportunity to massage the lotus feet of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. The Lord, in his ecstatic love for Kṛṣṇa, immediately embraced the king and thus bestowed mercy upon him. When there was an offering of prasadam in the garden, Lord Caitanya also partook of it. After this, when Lord Jagannath's Rath car stopped moving, King Prataparudra called for many elephants to pull it, but they were unsuccessful. Seeing this, Lord Caitanya began to push the car from behind with his head, and the car began moving. Then the devotees began pulling the car with ropes. Near the Gonicha temple is a place known as Aitota. This place was fixed up for Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu to rest in. When Lord Jagannath was seated at Sundarachala, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu saw it as Vrindavan. He performed sporting pastimes in the water of the lake known as Indradyumna. For 9 continuous days during Rath Yatra, the Lord remained at Sundarachala. And on the 5th day, he and Swarup Damodar observed the pastimes of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. During that time, there was much talk about the pastimes of the gopis. When the Rath was again being drawn by and the chanting resumed, 2 devotees from Kulina Gram, Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan, were requested to bring silk ropes every year for the Rath Yatra ceremony. Accompanied by his personal devotees, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu went to the festival known as Lakshmi Vijayotsav. There he discussed the super excellent love of the gopis. Just by hearing about them, he became very pleased and danced in great ecstatic love for the Lord. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leaves his temple, he leaves Lakshmi there and goes to Vrindavan, which is the Gudicha Mandir. And Lakshmi Devi at some point becomes exasperated and comes there to chastise her husband and all the associates and berates them and so forth and brings her opulence. And it's a great festival that's also performed in the recounting of the rasa between Kṛṣṇa in Dwarka and Kṛṣṇa in Vrindavan, and the moods of his queens of Dwarka and also the gopis of Vrindavan. Text 2. All glories to Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, known as Gaurachandra. Known as who? Gaurachandra. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. To whom? Nityananda. All glories to Advaitacharya, who is so exalted. All glories to all the devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur. All glories to the readers, Haribol, who have taken Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu as their life and soul. If you've taken Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu as your life and soul, say Haribol. While Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu was resting in ecstatic love, Maharaj Prataparuja entered the garden. Following Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's instructions, the king had given up his royal dress. He now entered the garden in the dress of a Vaishnava. Purport. Sometimes members of the International Society for Kṛṣṇa Consciousness, especially in the Western countries, find it difficult to approach people to distribute books because people are unfamiliar with the traditional saffron robes of the devotees. The devotees have therefore inquired whether they can wear European and American dress before the general public. From the instructions given to King Prataparuja by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, we can understand that we may change our dress in any way to facilitate our service. When our members change their dress to meet the public or to introduce our books, they are not breaking the devotional principles. The real principle is to spread the Kṛṣṇa consciousness movement. What's the real principle? Correct. And if one has to change into regular Western dress for this purpose, there should be no objection. Maharaj Prataparuja was so humble that with folded hands he first took permission from all the devotees. Then with great courage he fell down and touched the lotus feet of the Lord. As Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu lay on the raised platform with his eyes closed and in ecstatic love and emotion, the king very expertly began to massage his legs. The king began to recite verses about the Ras Lila from Śrīmad Bhagavatam. He recited the chapter beginning with the words Jayati Te Dikam. These verses from Śrīmad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 31, constitute what is known as the Gopi Gita. When Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu heard these verses, he was pleased beyond limits. And he said again and again, go on reciting, go on reciting. As soon as the king recited the verse beginning with the words Tavakatamritam, the Lord arose in ecstatic love and embraced him. Tavakatamritam Takta Jivanam Shavanam Itam Kaumashapaham Shravana Mangalam Srimadapatam Bhuvi Grinantiye Bhuridajana. Upon hearing the verse recited by the king, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu said, you have given me invaluable gems, but I have nothing to give you in return. Therefore, I am simply embracing you. After saying this, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu began to recite the same verse again and again. Both the king and Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu were trembling and tears were flowing from their eyes. My Lord, the nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those who are always aggrieved in this material world. These narrations are transmitted by exalted personalities, and they eradicate all sinful reactions. Whoever hears these narrations attains all good fortune. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Those who spread the message of Godhead are certainly the most munificent welfare workers. From Bhagavatam 10:31-9. After reciting this verse, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu immediately embraced the king and cried, you are the most magnificent, you are the most magnificent. At this point, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu did not know who the king was. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu's mercy was aroused because of the king's previous service. Therefore, without even asking who he was, the Lord immediately bestowed his mercy upon him. Edhika Caitanyara Kripa Mahabal Tar Anusandana Vina Karaya Sapal. Chant. Edhika Caitanyara Kripa Mahabal Tar anusandhana bina karai sapal. A. This. Deka. Just see. Chaitanyera. Of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Kripa Mahabal. How greatly powerful is the mercy. Tar anusandhana. Inquiring about him. Bina. Without. Karaya. He makes. Sapal. Successful. How powerful is the mercy of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Without even inquiring about the king, the Lord made everything successful. Are you ready for a purport?
Yes.
Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is so powerful that it acts automatically. If a person renders loving service to Kṛṣṇa, it never goes in vain. It is recorded in a spiritual account, and in due time it will fructify. This is confirmed by Bhagavad Gita 240. Neha bikramana shosti pratyavayam vidyate sopamapyasya dharmasya sayate mahato bhaya. In this endeavor there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu has particularly bestowed upon all fallen souls in this age the most potent method of devotional service, Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the Lord's holy name. And whoever takes to it through the mercy of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu is immediately elevated to the transcendental position. As Srimad Bhagavatam 11.532 recommends, Yagnai Sankirtane Prayar Yajantihi Sumedasa. A student of Krishna consciousness must receive Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu's mercy. What must the student do? Then his devotional service will quickly succeed. This was the case with King Prataparudra. One has to be noticed by Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, and a little service with sincere efforts will convince the Lord that one is a proper candidate for returning home back to Godhead. At first, Maharaj Prataparudra did not have a chance to meet Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, but when the Lord saw that the king was serving Lord Jagannath as a menial sweeper, the Lord's mercy upon the king became a solid fact. What did it become?
A solid fact.
When Maharaj Prataparudra, in the dress of a Vaishnava, was serving the Lord did not even inquire who he was. Rather, he had compassion upon him and embraced him. Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami wants to point out that nothing could compare to the Lord's mercy toward Maharaj Prataparudra. Therefore, he uses the word Deka, just see, and Chaitanyera Kripa Mahabal. Chaitanyera Kripa Mahabal. How does it go? All right, we'll sing it later. How powerful is the mercy of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. This is also confirmed by Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati Yat Karunya Kataksham Vaibhavam Vatam from the Chaitanya Chandamrita, number 5. Even a little of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu's mercy serves as a great asset for spiritual advancement. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement must be spread through the mercy of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. When Rupa Goswami experienced the mercy and magnanimity of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, he said, Namo Mahavadhanaya Krishna Ena Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Nami Gora Tvishe Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, Śrī Krishna Caitanya, who is more magnanimous than any other avatar, even Krishna himself, because he is bestowing freely what no one else has ever given, pure love of Krishna. Srila Lochan Das Thakur has also sung, Parama Karuna Pahundui Jana Nitai Gaura Chandra. The two brothers Nitai and Gora are so kind that no one can compare to them. Similarly, Srila Narottam Das Thakur said, Rajendra Nandana Jay Shachi Sutta Hoilu Se Balaram Hoilo Nitai Dina Hina Dyata Chida Hari Nama Udarilo Tara Sakshi Jagai Madai. Just to deliver all the sinful persons of this age by propagating the chanting of the holy name, Lord Kṛṣṇa and Lord Balaram have advented as Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Jagai and Madai are evidence of their success. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu's special mission is the deliverance of all fallen souls in Kali Yuga. Devotees of Kṛṣṇa must persistently seek the favor and mercy of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu to become fit to return home back to Godhead. Purva Seva Deki. He sees the Purva Seva, he mentions this, the previous service of Prataparudra Maharaj. And if we go on a search for what was that service, you see that although he was the king of Puri, he had served Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy had a need to retire from his position as a governor and serve Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu in Jagannath Puri. As Mahaprabhu said, why don't you just come to Puri? After they met at Kavur, they had this exchange. It was precipitated by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya after his conversion, telling Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, I had met previously this great devotee, his name is Ramananda Roy. Please do not miss the opportunity to meet with him when you go on your tour. Previously, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had been a dry philosopher, a Mayavadi, and was converted by the mercy of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. And then he told Mahaprabhu that I didn't understand the mood and position of Ramananda Roy. Please meet him. And of course, Mahaprabhu had, on his tour, met with Ramananda Roy. They had embraced and checked their emotions because they noticed that there were many government servants around who were serving Ramananda Roy. But to speak of others who could not understand how it was, and especially at that time, it's hard for us to understand, those of us who live here in California, what would be wrong with a sannyasi embracing a governor. But there were strict rules of etiquette at that time. And they were the onlookers were quite amazed that this was taking place. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu checked his emotions, as did Ramananda Roy. Mahaprabhu had recommended to him, why don't you just quit your job and join me in Jagannath Puri. And Ramananda Roy, in requesting the king, in whose employ he was, Ramananda Roy, or the king, had given him a full pension, no reduction in his income, but he was fully retired. He said, please, this is the most worthy cause. You go and serve Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu in Jagannath Puri. So Ramananda Roy, of course, noticed right away the enthusiasm of Prataparudra to give him full facility to worship Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the guru of Prataparudra. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Gorgona Deshadipika says this, the incarnation of Brihaspati. And Prataparudra was very much devoted to him, so much so that when Sarvabhauma had his conversion, he came to know that Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We know the pastime, and many have been to the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his Sadbhuj form. And Sarvabhauma then became a great lover of the Lord, even wanting to change one of the words in the Bhagavatam, as he thought it sounded Mayavadi. And Mahaprabhu said, no, you can't do that. You just have to think of it in a different way. Mukte Pade means that the lotus feet of the Lord. And he, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, had then told Prataparudra Maharaj that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada mentions that this is the way of disciplic succession. He had taken the direction of his guru, and Prataparuja Maharaj had become fully devoted to Caitanya Mahaprabhu in that way. So when Caitanya Mahaprabhu heard from Sarvabhauma that the king had requested that, please, I have to have audience with the Lord, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had relayed that message to Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu, rather delicate topic, as he knew that Caitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to maintain the etiquette of sannyas, which would include not meeting a king. And Sarvabhauma said, I would like to make a proposal. You may accept or not accept, according to your mood. And Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, I won't know until you tell me, please tell me. And he said, the king has requested an audience with you. He's so dedicated that, and such a great devotee of yours. But Mahaprabhu, upon hearing the word king, then had abhorred the word and the concept of him meeting a king. He said, not possible. I cannot meet a king. And later, when Ramananda had come to Puri after his retirement, he had gone straight to see Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and even he then mentioned the king. He said, I've come here because Ramananda Roy gave me a full salary, pension. And also he said, he's a better devotee than I am. Hearing from the devotees, Caitanya Mahaprabhu's heart changed. And there's a very important lesson in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's meeting with the king. Because when he went back and told Prataparuja that Mahaprabhu won't see you, here's Prataparuja's response. This is what we can learn from. He said, then what's the use of my life? Then what's the use of my kingdom? I don't even want them anymore. I'll put an ivory earring in and just walk away. I'll walk away from the whole thing. You watch me. Unless I can meet the Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu, then even my life, I'd rather die. There's no sense in living for me. And Srila Prabhupada then mentions in this context, this is Dhritavrata. It's a firm determination. As Rupa Goswami says, Utsahan Nischaya Dharya Tat Tat Karma Pavartana. One has to have this sense of great determination. How great must one's determination be in order to achieve? Do or die. How can you defeat that? If someone says, if I can't have your service, if I can't see you, then I'd rather die. Such a person then is destined to see the Supreme Lord. And that's what leads to this pastime today. That Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya could understand that the king would become very fortunate because he already had the mood that I have to see Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's what holds back anyone from developing pure devotional service, is some niggling last desire to stay here in the material world and hold on to something insignificant. And if one has come to the point of having one-pointed attention, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmakat Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana, one-minded, that I only want this, then one very easily attains the Lord. Last statement before we take some reflections and questions. And that is that here in the Purport, very interestingly, Prabhupada says that the mercy of Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu was automatic. So I was looking at the word automatic, and one of the definitions is spontaneous. Now, how is it that the Lord's mercy is spontaneous towards Prataparuja, or anyone else for that matter? Because in the context of this purport, Prabhupada is saying that Caitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is there, available to everyone. And the mission of Caitanya Mahaprabhu is to extend that mercy to everybody on the planet. So part of it is in Krishna's own disposition towards all living beings. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, Samaham sarva bhuteshu nami dveshastina priya, e bhajanti tumam bhaktya, maite teshu chapyaham. The first half of the verse means that I'm equal to everybody. And the second half means the devotees are dear to me. It's so dear. Anyone who expresses some devotion towards me becomes very dear to me. I am in that devotee, and that devotee is in me. The relationship becomes intimate at that point. So, Prahlad Maharaj says that the Lord is like a desire tree. Naisha para varamatir bhavato nanu sajjantori yata asurido jagatas tatapi samsevaya suratarori vate prasara sevanu rupa mudayona paravaratvam. He says that there's a way in which Naisha para varamatir, there's no consideration, Krishna has no consideration of who's higher and lower, paravaratvam. But in that sense, he's like a desire tree. Eva taro. Eva means like. Taro means a tree. Eva te prasada. He gives his mercy, however, says Prahlad Maharaj, according to the temperature of one's desire to know him. And sevanu rupam udayuna paravaratvam. He said, although he doesn't consider the higher lower, what he does consider, sevana rupa, is the level of your service. So, this is the mood or the process of receiving the automatic mercy of the Lord. It's there, available to everybody. But sevana rupa, what is the form of one's service? What's the service attitude? What is our dridhavrata, our firm determination? Is it as firm as Prataparudra Maharaj, that if I don't get it, then I'd rather die? And then if it's that intense, then this is the qualification to receive the full mercy of the Lord. And in the words of Weight Watchers, who puts a huge banner in front of their room, people come in, they say, I want to lose weight. The big banner greets them when they walk into the room, and it says, you gotta wanna. If you don't want it, then how is anybody going to make you do it? And this is the essence of attaining the mercy of the Lord. If you want it, it's already there, available, it's automatic, it comes pouring in. I'll take a few reflections or questions so we can expand the conversation. Yes? Rameshwar Prabhu.
After hearing this nectar, I'm trying to relate it to what we're going to all be doing tomorrow.
Good idea.
And I'm humbly asking for your recommendation for the devotees that are pulling the carts or dancing in front of the deities and chanting in front of the deities. What would you recommend that we focus on the whole time thinking about? Because this is very esoteric. Taking Lord Jagannath and Kṛṣṇa back to Vrindavan is very advanced. But what would you say we should meditate on while we're dancing and chanting?
I had a conversation with Dhruv about a week before Rath Yatra. And I'll give you his observation. And that is that when we go out to pull the carts or to greet people and give them transcendental literature and the holy name, the prasadam and so forth, we should be inclusive. That was his observation and opinion. Inclusivity. This is immediately effective when we're thinking about how to distribute to others and make it available. Means, as Dhruv said, in the kirtan, if we're aware that there are people listening, watching, and we're singing in such a way that they can hear the mantra and that they can also participate, that's inclusive. And when we see people who are appreciating, if we make friends with them, give them an opportunity to come to the festival, invite them, be friendly, leave everyone with a good impression. Inclusivity, invite people to come for prasadam.
Perfect answer, thank you. So we're not going to be out there tomorrow just thinking about ourselves. We're going to be out there chanting and dancing and pulling the carts and thinking about what bringing Kṛṣṇa to everyone here.
Yeah, everyone means you have to even go to Venice Beach, which is like the Viraja. When you cross over from the Rath Yatra, that little pathway, once you get to the other side, you notice the transcendental vibration turns to something completely opposite. It drags one down. And if we have a sense that we're being improved by being in the association of devotees and we're chanting it, and we feel that we're rising above the influence of the Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mada, Moha, Matsari, which is impossible. You can't do it in the material world. Doesn't matter how many YouTube channels you watch. It doesn't help. Everyone has their own opinion about even get up earlier, this and that. But you have to chant Hare Krishna. And that's why Prabhupada says in the purport here, the movement has to be spread by the mercy of Lord Caitanya. It's not us. It's Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu's mercy that spreads the movement. And it's not a material arrangement, although we should be very careful about how we present ourselves to others. Because although Agyata Sukriti is a fact, and Prabhupada mentions it here, there's a way in which everyone has a bank account. They may get the holy name and hear it. It's even more effective when we're careful to present it in such a way that it feels inclusive, that we're bringing them along and that we're considering the context that we're in. That's why earlier Prabhupada said, even if you have to change your dress, which was precipitated by Bhaktidas in the early 70s, dressing up the devotees from the Salvation Army. For those of you who don't know, that's a great place to get your clothes. And there was a conflict afterwards because some devotees had opined that this was going against the devotional principles, changing into pants or whatever. And that, of course, came to Srila Prabhupada's desk, because that's where everything ended up. Any controversy, either on a morning walk or a letter to Prabhupada, that Prabhupada, these devotees have become hippies again, they put on pants. But then, and Prabhupada said, okay, then tell them to stop it. Until he received a letter from Bhaktidas saying that, well, Prabhupada, we're doing it just for Sankirtan, and we've increased threefold since we've done this. And then Prabhupada wrote this purport. Of course, he wrote a letter back saying it's okay. Because as he mentions in the purport, our main principle is to spread mercy. Everything else is an adjustment in order to make that available to the people. So there's a way in which our first concern is to let the flood of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy come to as many people as possible all over the world. Caitanya Mahaprabhu created the flood. Those are the reasons I mentioned earlier. There's a way in which, even at Rath Yatra, he had expanded himself into all the different dancing parties because he couldn't bear to not be with each one of the groups. So he expanded himself. Great luxury of being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's a way in which his tears had showered everybody. But there's a sense also in the Bhagavatam that if you've landed in Kali Yuga, you're at the right place at the right time, especially this Kali Yuga. Karvajana Muni says, Kalim sabhajayantyarya gunagya sarabhagina yatra sankatanena eva sarva swartopi labhyate. Because if you know what's what in Kali Yuga, and you know that Caitanya Mahaprabhu has come here to flood the whole world with His mercy, and that you get everything by joining Caitanya Mahaprabhu in His Sankirtan movement, then you're sarabhagina, you know what the essence of reality really is. So we are meant to expand the flood to as many people as possible. And that should be our thought. Yes?
Jai, thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Two points, if you don't mind. Very short. First one is about dress. Mukunda Maharaj told me that he was with Prabhupada in London, and one devotee had to go meet some government officer about something. So he put on a three-piece suit and a tie, and Mukunda Maharaj was saying, wow, you look good. And Prabhupada said, yes, first dress, then address. And then at that point he also said, you can dress like this, but there should always be two things. Flag, meaning Shika, and Tila. So you can dress like the Westerners, that's okay, but probably look at those two things. And then the other one was about inclusivity. This morning we were glorifying Vaisesika Prabhu, which was 51 years of book distribution. So I had the good fortune of being with him on Christmas, our Prabhupada Marathon in 1996. We were at LAX distributing. So the now infamous, but at that time only famous, O.J. Simpson came in with his two children. His son was about maybe 5, the daughter was about 7. Prabhu stopped him. Hey, O.J. Tried to give him about a year. So he took off. Half an hour later, he comes back in another direction, but only the son, the girl that gets to put her on a plane or something. So Prabhu stopped him again. Hey, O.J. And he was trying to blow it up, but the son said, Daddy, buy the book. So he gave him $5. And he even said, I don't know why I'm giving you these $5. Later on, he was implicated in the murder of his wife, and he got off. And I'm convinced it's because he bought it. Vaisesika Prabhu ki jai.
Jai. 1, 2.
I just want to appreciate how you give us the history of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's so natural and it's in story form, and it's easy for me to absorb. So and you bring in modern examples like Weight Watchers. I just like it's easy to relate and it feels inclusive. So I appreciate that. My question is. We hear in the Bhagavad Gita that Kṛṣṇa preserves what we have and carries what we lack. Then we hear now in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that it's all based on Mahaprabhu's mercy. And I'm wondering, what do we do, those of us who have dependents, whether they are children or community members, with all our imperfections, to continue having the faith that this will fructify in time, and to continue moving forward in Mahaprabhu's mission as best we can, without letting the mind or the frustrations of the mind win us over.
Well, let's ask somebody who grew up in Krishna consciousness. Does anybody want to? Okay. So what's your opinion?
I'd like to know a different opinion.
Well, as far as young people go, who've had the advantage of starting Krishna consciousness either from birth or from a very early age, I've just noticed that if we create an environment where there's ample opportunity to associate with peers who are doing great, and where there's also upward mobility so that the devotees can take on services and feel part of the Krishna conscious movement, then there's apt to be a natural attachment to Krishna consciousness, because young people they like to do what other young people are doing. If they have the choice of being with a bunch of young people who are misbehaving and a few older people who aren't, then they usually choose the young people because it's in human nature to be with our own age group. So creating an environment where young people can hear and chant together and feel part of the movement and be engaged is a good recipe for success, in my opinion. Does that work? It's scientific. I got it from interviewing some of our godbrothers and godsisters who were initiated by Prabhupada when they were as young as 12 during the pandemic. You've heard this a million times. I got together a little panel and I asked them, what helped you the most when you were a kid? And they came up with this statement, seeing peers doing great. And then I said, what hindered you the most? And they said, no upward mobility. By that they meant that they didn't see any opportunities for them in the future to take on services. So those two things were what they came up with. So that's what I see. And as far as our own mind goes, you have to you do the best you can with what you have. And the best you can with what you have generally means there are 5 processes of devotional service out of 64 that are especially potent. Reading Śrīmad Bhagavatam, chanting Hare Krishna, associating with devotees, living in a holy place, and worshiping the deity. If you have these 5, Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu mercifully said to Sanatana Goswami, even a little bit, and even if you don't have faith in them, he said, you're going to be successful in devotional service. And if you can provide those 5, or even some of them, and even a little connection with them, then whomever you're taking care of will likely have success in devotional service. And at the same time, you have to take a chill pill, because we're not the Supreme Ishvaras. And the way to control your mind is to remember that. I once asked the Godbrother, because I had a big problem on my mind, and I called him up and I said, what should I do? And he said, well, just remember you're not the Supreme Ishvara. And I said, okay, I'm fine now, thank you very much. Prabhupada had kids, one of them sued ISKCON, and there were other ones that didn't really take to Krishna consciousness. So just remember, you do the best you can with what you have, and of course we have to give our full love to our kids, and we have to involve them in hearing and chanting, but then the rest is up to how they decide, because everyone else, ultimately, young people have to make a decision. Every soul does, not just young people. Every soul, doesn't matter. You can have midlife crisis and say, oh, I give up, I quit. It's your choice. That's the thing. We have an existential choice to make. Do I want to accept the mercy of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, or do I want to hang on to some burnt lumber and carry it around? Prabhupada saw a poor person carrying around some burnt firewood at Howrah Station. He said that represents every living entity trying to hold on to some little chip in the game here in the material world, and instead of just surrendering to Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So if you take a chill pill, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaya Yashavaira Gyam Gyanam Chaya Rahaitukam, you get a little detachment yourself from chanting great japa and hearing Śrīmad Bhagavatam at least 3 hours a day, or 3 minutes, whatever you can do. Then you'll have a higher perspective. And last point, a very dear godbrother of mine who was extremely advanced. I was complaining one day about all the ways in which in management you have to deal with one problem after another. And he said to me, main principle in management is you have to be blissful. Because you can't deal with anything or any problem properly unless you're blissful. And the only way to become blissful is to chant good japa. Actually, chant great japa. Forget good japa. Because good japa turns into mediocre japa. And chant great japa. And if you do that, then you can deal with everything. And as somebody reminded me, hate to quote myself, but they quoted me yesterday. Madhava Mahotsav told me. He said, you once said, if you don't read all of Prabhupada's books, you'll go insane. So I'd like to, how do you do it? Repost? Is that what you do? I'd like to repost my own statement. Because I like it. If you don't read all of Prabhupada's books, you'll go insane. So don't go insane. Chant great japa and read, thanks for giving me that repost. Read all of Prabhupada's books and chant great japa. Last point.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the nice class and reading. I had a question about the slogan of the Weight Watchers, which was You Gotta Wanna. So how can we wanna when it feels like our desire is so wavering?
Association. Find association with those who have an intensity about them, and just try to hang on to them. Follow them around, listen to what they say, try to eat what they eat, wake up when they wake up. That's what Rupa Goswami says. He says, Tadnama Rupa Charita, no, what's the number 5? Krishneti yasa giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti che pranatabishta bhajantamisham shushushaya bhajanam. He says, there are levels of devotees. Observe what the levels are. He says, for one, anybody who chants Hare Krishna. Like this morning, we went for a walk around 3 times around the temple. And some guy was coming the other way. Sun was just coming up. He goes, how come you guys aren't at Venice Beach yet? Hare Krishna. In our mind, we expect the person's a devotee. He got that Neha Brikramadashosti. He has some sentiment towards what we were appreciating as we were walking away. In our minds, we were thinking, that's a great soul. Then there's other people who say, chanting Hare Krishna, I've looked into it. It's the thing. I'm going to chant Hare Krishna with a vow. I'm going to keep 16 rounds a day. And then Rupa Goswami says there's people, Nindari Shunya Hridaya Mipsa Tatsanga Labhya. You've noticed that they've been doing it and it's working and they're on a different level. He says follow them around. Listen to what they say. Try to get association, because association rubs off. It's the main principle for anything in this world. If you want to become a great materialist, just find materialists and listen to what they say, go hang out with them. I mean, don't do that. But Prabhupada said, if you want to become a drunkard, process is go find a park bench somewhere where there are a couple drunkards hanging out. You'll notice the brown bags and just say, like, how do you do that? It's like, oh, it's easy. You just take a little sip and then later on you fall on the ground and wake up 10 hours later and have it again. And he said, you can do that. So in the same way, if you find somebody who obviously is on the next level and you say, how can I be there? Cancel appointments, do what you have to do, and just be there, because we become who we associate with. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Purusha prakritisto hi bhunte prakriti jan gunan karanam gunasangosya sarasadyoni janmaso. He said, you want to know the cause of whatever mood you're in, or whatever good or bad you've attained, or whatever species of life you're in, it's because of your association. Does that work for you? Okay. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, Śrī Panchatattva, Śrī Rukmini Dwarkadish, Śrī Gaurnitai, Śrī Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, if you so desire, please instill in our hearts the mood of Srila Prabhupada, which was to adjust anything to give mercy to the fallen conditioned souls so that they can take up Caitanya Mahaprabhu's special offer to chant in Sankirtan and go back to Godhead. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna. Panchakalptamrishcha kripasindhaveva patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakoti vaishnavini ki jai go premanande.